one of this best of three. I have to say I'm a little bit surprised. Like it's really annoying me now that the the way the players come up on the scoreboard on the bottom of the screen is never lining up with where they're spawning on the map. It's really starting to get to me today. I mean, it must be like this quite a lot in Leifeng Cup, but it's really starting to get to me. I think it's just because I noticed it in the first game today, and now it's still in my head, and it's still there, you know? Alright, guys, time for some Bomber. He is the blue Terran player to the top left, representing the Afrika Freaks. Afrika Bomber. I mean, who doesn't love Bomber, right? I mean, this is one of these guys who's been in the StarCraft scene for a long, long time. He is a lot of people's favourite player, or at least at one point was. He's a champion. He won the WCS Season 2 Season Championships, or whatever it was called back in 2014. And, yeah, and Xigua down to the bottom right from Invictus Gaming. Well, he beat Pult last week, so, I mean, hard to argue. I mean, very, very hard to say who's in better shape, Pult or Bomber. I mean, you have to imagine Bomber practicing Korea and, beating Dark in Pro League. You can't, I think, Bomber has to be a very tough opponent to go up against. We'll see how Xigua does against him here in this best of three. Again, best of threes throughout today. And this is going to be a kind of a series of Bomber matches, a series of Bombers TvZ, because he plays against Xigua now, Silky after this, and then he plays against Scarlet as the final match of the day. So that's going to be a whole variety of TvZs for you guys to watch here as we jump in and get set and ready to go. Where's my shirt from? My shirt is from, this one's from Dubai. Oh, I'm holding it up, but I'm not on camera, which is a bit dumb. Yeah, this one's from Dubai. It's a couple of years old now, actually, or 3 years old even. Yeah, I have another one exactly like this is from Las Vegas, which is much newer. So yeah. Ground Informs, he says, have a new follower. Thank you very much for hitting that follow button. Appreciate it. As we do see the Rip in the Circle, it's just going to have their standard early game TvZ dance off here. Whoa, big grenade though. Actually landed on all of those links. That's a good amount of splash damage in Bomber. Going to pick up one circling from that, and maybe even a second one now. Has to be careful for that queen popping out though. Has to just be a little bit cautious. So these this Rip has to kind of back off a little bit. Can't overcommit too much here. As you're going to see, them Lings just kind of patrolling on the edge of the main base. Some Lings just patrolling on the edge of the main base, and you're just going to be seeing the factory just lifting, dropping down. Reactor is going to be onto that factory, and so we're starting to see kind of the setup here early on. Starport on the way to... Was that? Yeah, it is a starport. All of this off of one gas, actually. So one gas starport, reactor and Hellions. So the starport not going to be used for much more than probably just very simply here a medevac to drop some Hellions, or potentially a Viking too. We're going to see he was building a tech lab there, I believe, and then he cancels that. He's just going to go into marine production. So again, all of this off of one gas means that Bomber can go into that very fast third command center, which is already over halfway done. And we'll see what comes out of the starport. It is going to be a medevac, which is, I don't think, too surprising, really. I mean, medevac, yeah, I think it's pretty standard. When you're on one gas, you're not going to really be able to afford a Liberator or something. You can't really afford Cloak Banshee. We could probably see a Viking follow this up as well. But I think there's a lot of potential for the medevac and 4 Hellions to get damage done. A lot of potential that you may as well go for. I mean, it's obviously the point of the build, but you may as well go for it before you go for a Viking afterwards. I think there's a lot more to gain by getting a medevac out than than avoiding getting a medevac, basically. I mean, even if you just run in and get like 5 or 6 drones, I say just 5 or 6 drones, but I mean, you're almost guaranteed that sort of damage, because with 5 or 6, with 4 Hellions and a medevac, you can generally fly around the map well enough to be able to, at some point be in a location where the units are not from your opponent and run in again, get 2 or 3 drones, do that twice, and boom. You're already definitely, starting to pay for this, but some Hellions in position right now, but Hellions are still going to drop down and just going to start doing a little bit of damage. Queen's actually very quick to respond as well, as they're going to come into position. Start targeting down that medevac, as we're going to see. Well, the Hellions moving forwards there, going to start pulling back very quickly. One of them Hellions getting low, actually 2 of them getting low. Bomber maybe just overcommitting a little bit there with those Hellions, and well, everything I just said about getting a couple of drones going to be shut down, because I mean, Xigua actually had that very well under control. I mean, the Queen's coming in from both the high ground and the low ground really limited Bomber as to where he could go, and the Ling's just in position as well, helping him out. So it's going to be seeing the Orbital just lifting, going to be dropping down onto the third base. So, I mean, Bomber not really doing damage here early. Now, there is a lot of roaches on the way out if you've been watching the production tab. And Xigua, he's not stopping with this roach production at all. So he's going into a big roach ravager timing. Something which Bomber's going to see right now. But he's got 1 bunker, 4 marines inside of it. I mean, them 4 Hellions aren't going to be much good at all. I mean, the medevac will come back and try and do some healing. I don't really know if Bomber has enough to realistically survive right now. His Stimpak's on the way. It's not going to be done for a little while. We do see the Viking landed. I mean, any sort of little bit of extra damage which he can get here onto this army is going to try and help out, as first Ravager's just not quite enough initially to kind of break through this bunker. Ling's running in as well. Now some more corrosive bars. Actually going to kill off a lot of SCVs. The bunker goes down as well, and still a lot of Roach Ravager over here. And Bomber, with this Hellion opening that didn't really do a lot, and his lack of preparation for a counterattack, is going to be in a lot of trouble. He's already lost a lot of SCVs. The corrosive bar is going to come down. That bunker goes. Bomber types out GG, and Xigua continues to impress. Something really cool from last week. After this game, for now we're going to be going into Dusk Towers for game number 2. Now, much less likely we see some kind of Roach Ravager timing on this map like we saw in the last map. Much more likely we see kind of a longer, drawn-out game, which heads into late game. I mean, unless players make a mistake early on, and even if they do make a mistake early on, we oftentimes see this kind of, this map leading to the later stage of the game. Even if a Terran is kind of behind, I mean, I think the best example of this recently was Bunny against E-Laser, where even if a Terran is behind, coming out, going into kind of, in the mid game, this is a map which really allows you to just turtle, sit back, not do nothing, but defend, and just build up that mega late game army that a Terran player needs to kind of, to just sort of have a, make the Zerg life difficult. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this game plays out. I mean, again, there's definitely things which will end this game early. I mean, fast Nidosaur learns meters which do too much damage, timings from the Terran player which do too much, or drop play. There's definitely ways to end it early, but a lot of the time we do see it being drawn out into the later stages of the game, 4, 5, 6 bases and more. So we'll see how it goes as the repair. I think especially once you start heading to late game on this map, it is very difficult to then end the game in particular, because you try and attack into your opponent's bases, they're very well spread out, they're very well defended because of how easy it is, how little you have to spread to be able to defend those bases. The 4th base comes very much so kind of free of charge, the 5th base isn't that far away either. I mean, if we see the Terran player just locking down the middle of the map, then the Zerg just can't move across the map at all. That being said as well, I mean, there is options to go for kind of Nidus harassment. I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities, a lot of different options to kind of get around the fact that it can be a very stale and defensive map. But if both players are very good, defending from drops and Nidus networks and whatever, then it's going to get to the stage where we are kind of going into this big, big fight to try and end this game. There's going to be seeing a couple of, a racks and a factory being added on here. And a 3rd CC already on the way up. So once again, Bomber, not afraid to go into a very fast 3rd command center. He's going into this nice and quickly. Xigua on the other side of the map, he starts with Bling speed. He still has 1 worker left in gas here currently. So he still has 1 worker in gas. And, I mean, just adding on a few more drones. It's nothing really weird. I mean, 1 worker in gas can be multiple things. I mean, it might be kind of a fast layer of a 3 hatcheries. I mean, it might be kind of a... I mean, there's so many different possibilities here, basically. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. We'll see what it's going to be as we're going to see this drone just patrolling back and forth between, just around then. Just pop down that 3rd base now. So 3rd hatch coming down. And we're going to be seeing the couple of Hellions on the way out for Bomber once more. This time he goes into Stim quickly as well. No starport this time around, I don't believe. As we'll see what Bomber's overall game plan is going to be here in the next few minutes. What is Mega Late Game Army for Terran? Well, Mega Late Game Army for Terran is like kind of just mass liberate and mass ghosts, basically. Like, very little bio left, just kind of 20-ish ghosts, 20-ish liberators. I would say that's kind of the Mega Late Game Army. So, kind of, the way I kind of split up TvZ is that, early game is until kind of Stim kicks in and 3rd bases are saturated. Mid game is sort of playing bio against Mutaling Bane or bio against Roach Ravager. And then the kind of late game is when Ultras come out. And Terran has, initially in the early stages of the late game, you can split it up as much as you want, but basically early in the late game, Terran has a few Liberators to help deal with the Ultras. And then, Zerg starts getting Corruptors, and that's when Terran starts investing in Ghosts. Some people like to play Mass Liberator and no Ghosts, but first of all, you have a few Liberators, then you start getting more Liberators or Liberators and Ghosts, then eventually you kind of, you trade off your bio, and you basically you still want a little bit of bio, but for the most part you just kind of have mass ghost to mass liberator, which is sort of what's it's very good. I mean, it's the thing is, I mean, the thing is, the Zerg does have kind of ways to defend against it, parasitic bomb and so on, and it's just about, as always with kind of super late game armies, a lot of them are very powerful when you just attack straight into them, so it's all about kind of picking smaller fights or smaller skirmishes, or just kind of trading at the edge of the armies. I mean, that's what the Terran player loves to do, and that's what actually the Terran army is so good at. It's so good at taking advantage if the Zerg slightly overcommits, even for a split second. Boom, all of a sudden 3 snipes and an Ultralisk dies, a couple of snipes and boom, you've lost a Corruptor. The Terran player is so good at doing that, but the Zerg army is not so great at it. But, I mean, things like Vipers abducting in, or taking good parasitic bomb fights, and spreading out your Corruptors, and stuff like that. It's very difficult to play on both ends, but it can become very, very interesting to kind of watch, and kind of discuss kind of the mistakes players are making in the later stages of the game. It's pretty powerful though from the Terran. I mean, I'm not sure how it'll do once the Liberator splash damage gets nerfed. I think actually once that gets nerfed, we might be seeing Terran players just really struggling in the late game. I think we'll probably see them just actually not really having a chance anymore, because I think one of the things that's become very popular lately in TvZ or ZVT from the Zerg point of view has been to go Lingbane Corruptor again. And what that does is it means that you have Corruptors out. So instead of playing Lingbane Muta, you have Lingbane Corruptor. So you have Corruptors instead of Mutas, which are naturally better against Liberators. So the problem is that if you're playing Lingbane Corruptor, once you hit Hive, you go into Ultras. But you already have Corruptors out. So the Terran player is building Liberators to deal with Ultras, but there's already Corruptors out, right? So the Corruptors are already kind of a way to deal with the Liberators. And that Corruptor Ultra army kind of comes in. It's very, very strong until the Ghost count rises up a little bit, or the Liberator count gets very high. And that's going to be even harder to deal with now as a Terran player who can't do as much damage with the Liberator splash. And he's a couple of medevacs trying to drop around. I mean, Bomber at this point in the game is just sort of dropping around. He's going into 2-2, and I mean, the main time in this game for him is going to be after these drops, probably just heading into +2/+2 push. But until then, just going to be dropping around and looking, trying to distract the Zerg, get a little bit of damage done here and there. A couple of Bane's going to get some good shots off his Bomber, not quite paying attention to that drop as he unloads there in the 4th base. And another 2 medevacs heading towards the main, or actually just going to unload in the centre. Looks as though they're just going to be used to clean up some of the creep spreads, so just going to see the Marines stepping forwards and a big scan coming down. So a lot of these creep tumors starting to kind of go down here, and that's a big win for Bomber. I mean, not really a win, but it's something he really does need to keep control of. I mean, the less creep spread there is, the better of a position you're going to end up in as the Terran player later in the game. The less map control the Zerg has, the less mobility around the map they have as well. A lot of different sort of there's a lot of differences here. To have kind of a Zerg with very good creep spread and a Zerg with very little creep spread. This Bomber just going to be chasing away an Overlord. Another couple of creep teamers going to be coming down here for Xigua. Just going to be popping those down right now. As we see. Well, I mean, it is just going to be Mutalist, so Xigua is just going to play Lingbane Muta. I mean, it's a very standard composition. We've seen it time after time. He's going to start running in towards this main base now. And I mean, this turret sub Bomber's fairly well prepared for it. He knows that this is what his opponent's playing. He's actually going to be playing Mass Bio here, which is something which Bomber sort of in a way, sort of popularized, I guess, recently. Playing Mass Bio instead of ever kind of creating any factory units. I mean, there was a while where this was kind of a thing back in Wings of Liberty. I remember Marine King just saying at one point, like, well, you know what, no point playing Marine Tank anymore, time to just play Mass Bio. And it kind of became the thing for quite some time, just playing like 9, 10 barracks and just attacking. Back when kind of Cloud Kingdom was a popular map, that's the sort of time we used to see Basmayo back then. And, well, Bomber just looking to use it once again now. Let's see how successful it is against this Lingbane Muta army, which is starting to run on in here. And Bomber just going to be, well, a very good split so far, is just going to turn this army away. Immediately, Xigua just sort of pulls back, just says, well, can't really do much against this right now. Just going to see this big army moving over to the right-hand side. And Bomber is all the way onto creep spread, which is the one thing I'm a little bit, very much so more concerned about than anything else, because standing on creep is generally never ending. I don't think I've ever seen a Terran player standing on creep kind of be like afterwards, oh, that was a really great idea. it just makes it so difficult. It makes it so much easier for the Zerg to attack in. His bombers starting to split away in multiple locations. Is he going to be able to hold on against enough of this? Bane's getting some very good connections. I think Bomber's splitting is a little bit lackluster here towards the very end, if I'm honest. Although that being said, he still has enough. And he's got some Marines, yes, being pointed out by our observer underneath. But you're kind of still standing strong. With so many medevacs in the sky, I guess, is it really surprising that there's still so many Marines underneath? Well, not really, I guess, as we see these Marines and Marauders just going to stim in this base. Going to start taking some serious damage. A few Marines out over here. We're going to start getting rid of a few of these drones. A couple of Marauders going to stim on in and just work their way through this hatchery. So hatchery will fall. And we're going to just see everything sort of collecting together once again. We're going to see our Zerg player trying to catch kind of the reinforcements out on their own. Drones are being pulled into this as well. So Xigua is definitely feeling as though he has to, he doesn't have an army to realistically keep on fighting against this. There's a few more Marines stimming in. They're going to see that mulets going down. And those Zerglings, they're still just kind of taking some damage. Just so many Marines. Eventually, there's just not going to be enough. And Bomber is going to, well, whenever it was, like a couple of weeks ago, it was a bi-weekly cup. But last time around, in Cup 144, he was in the round of 8. And with some very good play as well. He took down Pulse 2-1 then. So, let's see what happens in game number 3. As we get set up and ready to go on Arena. Which, of course, is one of the weirder maps, which, well, I mean, again, if you sort of survive early on, then the later game on this map can actually be very good for both players if they like playing late game, because it can be very difficult to attack. Maybe even more difficult than Dusk Towers. In a lot of ways, it shares a lot of sort of similarities to Dusk Towers in the later stages of the game, where you can sit on 4 bases, 5 bases somewhat safely. Maybe not the 5th base as safely, because it's very susceptible to drops and run-bys. But, it's in general just a very difficult map to attack on in the later stages of the game. Once that kind of left hand, once the armies become big enough, so that left hand attack path becomes a lot less useful. So we'll see what happens as we see hatch gas opening from our Zerg, and Bomber just opening with a single Rax gas himself right now as well, looking for a Reaper here in the very early stages of this game. So we'll watch for this Reaper popping out here in a few moments' time. Bomber will just be expanding behind this, as we do see him just dropping down a reactor. Oh, so no Reaper, so just straight into a reactor. We see this quite a bit actually on Arena, just because I guess oftentimes because of the kind of how early Lings can get across. It's a little bit better just to have a couple of Marines out early rather than going into the Reaper and so on. So we are just going to be seeing opening with a Reaper does leave you with a fair few weaknesses. I mean, when you think about it, the Reaper is kind of, you go Reaper then into a reactor, you don't have any Marines or anything out for a very long time. You go open a reactor, expand, and you've got very fast Marines, and you can also go into a factory still after it. You just lose the scouting on the Reaper, which is, well, on Arena, not necessarily the most sort of guaranteed thing in the world either. I'd imagine here Bomber is probably going to go for some kind of tank-based opening. Whether he gets very aggressive with it or not, we'll see. We could see maybe the Widowmine drop into a siege tank, or we could just see straight into siege tanks to kind of go for a push. Bomber is adding on a second gas, so I mean, we're definitely going to see the starport coming down, and for the first time in this series, we're not going to be seeing a very fast third CC from Bomber, so we're going to be a little bit different here for sort of the first time today from Bomber's TvZ. I mean, it's such classic Bomber to go kind of free CC and just macro and max out and attack with 2-2 upgrades. I mean, he was the kind of creator of free CC builds and free CC playstyles. I remember watching Day 9, talking, way back when, and doing Day 9 daily on, free CC, Bomber's free CC on Metalopolis. And it was just kind of he revolutionized TvZ as a matchup with his fast third command center and just how he played for a very strong time behind the fast economy. You're going to see a siege tank on the way. Of course, then the matchup developed so much since then with Roach, Bane, Ling all becoming a very strong kind of opening. And I mean, we've seen all sorts in TvZ. I mean, in all honesty, when you kind of think back and kind of think about kind of all the phases of each of the matchups, it's been kind of fascinating to think about all the changes we've seen. And even when there's not been major patches, the kind of just the changes in the playstyles which you've seen. As we're going to be seeing the first tank is on the way up, and again, I don't think it's surprising to see a tank coming out here for safety on Arena. It's kind of funny because this map's so good for all-ins, and yet nowadays we don't even see that many more all-ins on it because it's at a point where we just sort of, all the players just realize, like, if I just open somewhat safely, but still, like, economic safety, like, I'm going to open, like, not with a huge amount of economy, but I'm going to expand, but just open, like, with a tank after my expansion. Like, people realize that just opening like this is very good, and then they realize, like, oh, well, actually, I don't actually ever need to. Then people realize, well, all-ins are never going to work if everyone's just doing this build, which is nice and safe. The best thing about this build for Bomber is that you can actually get a very good trade after this. So we're really seeing him pushing across the map and trading here with these Marines and with this tank. Looks like the Queen's going to be looking to target that down. Medevac pulling this away. Oh my god, he's getting so close. Some Marines still left over here, still fighting against a few more Zerglings streaming in. This tank's still alive as well. The micro from Bomber is insane so far. Just keeping that tank alive until the very, very end. Now that Medevac getting very low, has to be a bit more careful about it. Does go down as well, targeted by that final Queen. And Xigua cleans this up. Doesn't take too much damage in the process. I mean, loses a lot of his Queens, I guess, which is, I mean, it's not nothing. I mean, it's worth pointing out. But he's got Queens to still inject with. I mean, he also traded off of Bomber's army, right? I mean, Bomber lost his first tank in Medevac, so he can't drop as much early on. He lost 12 Marines. I mean, 28 lanes, 12 Marines, and 3 Queens for tank Medic. Like, it's a fairly decent trade, I'd say, from Xigua. I think it's a pretty decent defense. I mean, it's a very strong, powerful attack. When it can hit so early, it can be difficult to deal with. So, I'd say he's done with, he's dealt with this pretty well for the most part. Do you see this Medevac just pulling over to the right hand side? And it's just going to be... I mean, this is the second Medevac and the second tank, which is kind of why it's so important for Xigua to clean up that first attack, because by the time, when a second tank and a second Medevac comes out, well, what at that point you're talking about a really, really difficult... it just becomes more and more difficult to deal with over time, as Viking just going to be hunting around for some more overlords out on the map, just looking to get some more damage done. Especially around the left-hand side, I would say, is very important, because Bomber would like to... Bomber would like to try and take down some of these overlords and clean up that kind of drop path for himself. And if he could clean up that drop path, well, that'd be pretty great for him. I think that'd be one of the main things he'd really kind of like to go... it'd really help him out, basically. It would really help him out, so... We'll maybe see that sort of being set up here, as we're going to see. This tank's still moving around, just kind of unloading, cleaning up a creep tumor here, a creep tumor there. Just kind of pressuring, killing off a Zergling on the watchtower. At this point, a tank and a Medevac can get a lot done. And we are seeing it get quite a bit done as well. We haven't really mentioned kind of the composition on the way in for our Zerg, which is going to be Roach Ravager. We see +1 missiles is on the way, Roach speed. He's also going to go into the Infestors, so it's not going to be super aggressive Roach Ravager. It's going to be like a, I want a macro Roach Ravager. So Roach Ravager, Infestor, solid composition, and we'll see when his +1 missile finishes kind of how this game's going to go. Is he going to commit to the Roach Ravager and kind of go into +2 missile attack? Or is he going to go into the Hive and start at +1 melee and get ready for his switch into Ultralisks here on Arena? I mean, there's both are kind of very strong possibilities. We've seen both many, many times recently in the kind of TvZ and Legacy of the Void. It is going to be +2 missiles. So, I mean, Roach Ravager Infestor was actually kind of... someone like Snoot, for example, used Roach Ravager Infestor all the time. Even just a month or so ago, was still using Roach Ravager Infestor pretty much every game. It still uses it a lot now, but the problem is it's kind of one of these compositions which was so powerful at the start of Legacy of the Void. Then Terran sort of realized how to play against it, and so now it's still good. It's not bad. It's just people have realized that there's just so much more they can get done if they, the people just realize how to play against it in general, and you're just going to be seeing these Roaches and Ravagers just having a little bit of a look, try and move forward a little bit here, see if they can push on in towards these bunkers, perhaps. But, we do see a Hive on the way, and, well, Spire too, so we're going to see the Roach Ravager Infestor. I mean, a more natural kind of follow-up from Roach Ravager Infestor is probably to go in towards Broodlords. You have kind of a lot of kind of tanky Roach Ravager kind of sit underneath the Broodlords, keep them safe. The fungal growth's already out in the game to kind of stop Vikings approaching the Broodlords, and, fungal corrosive bile combo can get a lot of damage done to take down air units, to take down, bio units as well if you can catch them. So we'll be seeing here as this Hive morphing in. I'm just over halfway done right now. As we see, well, Bomber, I mean, combat shields is on the way up, +2/+2 is on the way up, and again, at this early stage of the game, he's dropping around the map to see what he can get up to. He's dropping around the map to see if he can get some damage done here. He's looking to see what's up and looking to see what's happening, but yeah, I mean he's dropping around the map to see what's going on. Yet at the same time, his real plan here is probably to just wait for 2-2 and then just attack. He's gone into concussive shells. He's going into kind of, again, once, after these kind of early tanks, he's given up on factory production for the most part. He's just going into a whole bunch of bio. He's just massing up the bio once again. He did clean up the overlords on this left side of the map for the Vikings, so this drop comes across without being seen at all. And, I mean, Xigua is very out of position to begin with in terms of dealing with this drop, so Bomber has some time here where he'll probably pick off a queen. I mean, shouldn't be able to get too much more than that. He's actually going to target down the roach worm, which is pretty nice, but Transfuse comes in, so that's actually kept alive as he sees those queens there. Nelly runs into the infestors as well, which would have been problematic. So we're going to see a stim forwards to the right-hand side. Some Marines and Marauders fighting against roaches there, I believe, and those roaches are going to start going down. I mean, very good upgrades for both players, 2-2 apiece. When Marines have medevac support, just Marines in general, are very, very good at sort of fighting against roaches. Roaches kind of thrive on kind of lower swarm, in lower numbers. I mean, Ravages help with that, but in general, just roaches don't do so good in that sort of fight where they're kind of evenly matched in numbers and so on. We're going to see a big stim. We're going to see Marines, Marauders starting to split up a bit. Another couple of fungals coming down. No corrosive battles really kind of followed up with these though. It's a huge fungal down to the south side. These medevacs need to stop and just heal up for a moment or two. I mean, heal up some of this bio. That healing is one of the main reasons why Bomber is not dead from setting in those fungals, as he keeps on pushing forwards here. Now, the Broodlords are on the way in. I mean, this Hive Tech is about to kick in for our Zerg. And what we might see is that Bomber maybe takes down the 4th base, but in the end sort of, ends up kind of fighting against a Broodlord army, and so he has to back away so the Zerg can rebuild a bit. However, he comes in here now, picks off a couple of these infestors. Lots of corruptors in the sky. The medevac count is falling. Bomber going to make a big move in towards the 3rd base, where he's going to find a lot more roaches and ravagers. I think there's only one Broodlord that's come out here, and one Broodlord is not going to be enough. Bomber is losing a lot, pulling away now with his medevacs to keep them safe from them corruptors. He's going to kill the 3rd base. We are seeing a few more units coming up the left-hand side. There's one single Broodlord here. It's just not enough, The Xigua needs a little bit more than this, but he doesn't have it, and so he loses his 3rd base, and he's actually finally starting to drop behind a little bit now in supply as well. As we're going to be seeing the units just pulling over to the right hand side. We're going to actually see some Marines coming into the natural as well. So Bomber just going to keep on harassing, keep on doing damage, and when he's got the momentum, he's just going to make use of it basically, and just kind of be annoying as possible to his opponent. Now again, as we said before though, Bomber's still playing mass bio, and we see Broodlord starting to come in from Xigua. So although Xigua's lost a base, if he can get enough broods out and sort of just stick around here and survive, he might be okay. I say that's sort of very like I may not mean it, but like he honestly he might be. I mean the Broodlords, if he has enough of them, will be very hard to kill from Bomber, especially with infestor support. But I guess he lost his infestors. I mean, this push going through the center, Bomber's just going to kind of turn around and get ready to deal with it and leave some drops on the other side of the map. But what actually makes the army supplies right here very, very even. While Bomber will do a lot of damage across the map as well, though. Here's the thing from Xigua. He doesn't have the mobility to go back home right now. So he has to stay out on this map. He has to win the game or do similar damage as to what Bomber's doing with this push. And well, to begin with, he's starting to get somewhere with it. These Broodlords are firing down. There's Queens to transfuse. He actually sent his Ravagers back. I feel as though he needs the Ravagers here. He needs as much as he can to just keep these Broodlords alive for as long as possible. Because now we're going to see a stimming. Queens are going to start going down. And there's enough bio to just fight against this. And this is why I sort of feel we just sort of needed to see those Ravagers staying nearby, as the Broods are going to get stimmed underneath, and now they're going to start being targeted down. Bomber with drops in the main, he's taking down the base to the right-hand side of the map as well. He's going to push these Broodlords away. They're going to try and fight from a distance. Some corrosive battles missing those medevacs as Bomber lifts, he builds away. I mean, Bomber as well has so much time here where if he wanted to, he could make Vikings, but he's still just making medevacs. He says, well, I just want to make bio. I just want to make bio medevac, and if you don't want me to make bio medevac, then well, tough. I'm still just going to make it. You're going to see a couple more Broods going down to get to this point now. Only 2 Broodlords left. It's really not that much of a concern anymore. Just not enough here for Xigua in the very end. Quite a lot of Ravagers in the middle of the map, but again, so much bio around. There's no support for these Ravagers as well. And I mean, Ravagers, again, they're very good when they've got support and when they have Roaches to tank for them. They need to synergize with other units to really be super great. if it's not early in the game. And Bomber is going to take his first series of the day in our first